Affordability is such a problem right now. People want to buy real estate and then they look at the purchase price and they're like, how am I even going to be able to finance this? Today I'm going to be sharing with you 5 creative financing ideas so that if you get stuck trying to do a traditional mortgage with the bank, I've got 5 different ways that you can still buy a home. After the last 20 years having helped thousands of people acquire real estate and build portfolios, I'm going to tell you, I've seen just about every situation and I've had to learn how to get super creative. For some people, it's like, whoa, I didn't know that I could use an IRA or my 401k to buy real estate, or I didn't know I could talk to the seller and that they would work with me and kind of be the bank. In other words, as long as you're willing to think outside of the box, there's always a way forward. Today's housing market is tough for hopeful buyers. The combination of high prices and high mortgage rates means that many potential buyers find themselves priced out of the market altogether, or out of the typical methods for mortgage financing anyway. Alternative methods of financing are arguably the best ways to buy a home in situations like this, not just because it expands your options, but it also changes the principle behind how you approach finding financial freedom as a whole. So let me share with you 5 different creative alternatives to how you can still get that house than doing a traditional mortgage program. Number 1, you have what's called down payment assistance programs. Most states and local governments offer some type of down payment assistance programs. You literally Google the state that you're in and Google down payment assistance programs, and you're going to find in your area that the local government has programs set up under certain qualifications to basically give you free money or grant money that you can use as a down payment to buy a property. This is one of the biggest hurdles that new home buyers face. This was actually the first hurdle that I faced. I actually used a special Utah program called Nehemiah that basically helped me get a grant to help pay for my down payment when buying my very first property. Number 2, you have government loan programs, and I know you've heard of these. If you're not eligible for a conventional mortgage, look into mortgage programs that are backed by U.S. government agencies. Many of these come with low or even no down payment requirements if you qualify, and many have a lower credit score requirement as well. So for example, if you've worked in the military, you have VA or Veteran Active Duty loans. These are awesome because they often have a 0 down payment option. Number 2, you have FHA loans, Federal Housing Administration. What this government program does is it basically says if you're a first-time home buyer, FHA can get you by with like a 3% down payment. Now, it doesn't actually have to be your first home. It actually means the next home that you buy, which is your next first home, actually can qualify for that very low down payment. You also have USDA loans, right? These are loans for homes that are in rural areas, and often they also have 0 down options. Number 3 is where we get a little bit crazy. It's what I call rent to own. In fact, I actually wrote a book called The Strait Path to Real Estate Wealth, and it talks all about rent to own. Because just like leasing a car, you rent the place for now with an option to buy it later. And the tenants may choose to exercise the option to purchase or not. Often, a portion of the rent payment is applied towards the purchase price if the tenant decides to buy. And these arrangements can be great for those that can't afford to buy a home yet, but are diligently working their way forward. I built my original portfolio of 25 homes while I was in college, all on this entire rent-to-own theory. Basically, I would use an investor's money to buy a really good deal, and then I would advertise rent-to-own using the methods I describe in this free book. And then people would basically call very curious, like, what does rent-to-own mean? Because you say on your sign, rent-to-own, no bank qualifying, and sure enough, there's a group of people out there that are like, I'm either scared to qualify with the bank, or a few years ago I tried to qualify with the bank and they said no, and yet I still really want a home. I want home ownership to be a real option for me. Like, can you help me? And then they learn, oh my gosh, rent-to-own is actually a very viable program. The 4th option is called seller financing. This is where a homeowner actually owns a home and they'd like to sell it or rent it out, and you basically come in and say, hey, I'd actually like to buy the home, but I don't have the ability or want to qualify with the bank. Will you be the bank? And this is where the seller says, well, what does that look like? It's like, well, you actually already have a loan and you probably have payments. Like, what if I just make those payments? And then we agree upon the price later down the road that I'll buy it for. Seller financing is a great way for you to actually negotiate getting in on a property and skipping the banking process altogether. Here's a 5th option, borrowing from a retirement account. For a final solution to creative financing on a home, you could borrow from a retirement account. For example, there's exemptions where you can use up to a certain amount of money from a 401k. Now, it sounds kind of weird to borrow money from a 401k because they are going to make you pay it back, but there's no interest assigned. Literally, all the money just goes right back into your 401k. And let's be honest, those 401ks are producing some pretty awful returns. So if you're able to use it to get into your next home, I think that's kind of cool. And I want to give you a bonus option today, which is you could partner with someone, or you could borrow the money from somebody, or you could even co-borrow with like a parent or a friend. In all of those situations, you're basically saying, hey, I still want to be able to get in on the home, but I'm either lacking the money or I'm lacking the credit, in which case you can borrow the money, or you can borrow credit by actually making them a co-borrower, and voila, you found another solution. Here's the bottom line. If you don't qualify for a conventional mortgage right now, there are several non-traditional alternative ways for you to finance a home purchase, or at least help you to finance it. At the end of the day, this is my expertise, and there's a dozen more options out there. What you might actually need to get in moving forward is what I call a custom game plan. This is where me as a multimillionaire says, if I were you in your shoes and you have problems to overcome, let me show you how I would overcome them. And more importantly, let me show you how to acquire real estate on an ongoing basis so that you can become a multimillionaire, or that you can become financially free. If you've never had the perspective from someone who's very financially successful, it could make all the difference in the world. By clicking the link below, you have an opportunity to simply submit your name, phone, and email. By clicking the link below, you have the opportunity to submit your information and request a free game plan. And me or a member of my team, one of my experts, will actually contact you, figure out what you're trying to accomplish, and then formulate a game plan to show you how to start financially crushing it in the game of real estate. And by the way, while you're getting that game plan, if you really like learning about that rent-to-own option, make sure you request a copy of my book from my team, and they'll make sure they get you hooked up. I know that 401k option had to blow your mind a little bit, but you see, I don't believe in a 401k. I think it's a total scam. There's actually 6 major reasons why it is a scam. And if you actually want to know what they are, click right here and let me show you.